Hello and welcome to 3D matte painting. My name is Steven Cormann and I've been working professionally as a matte painter for over 5 years, specializing in films and video game cinematics. During that time, I worked for studios such as Industrial Light and Magic and Axis Studios on projects like Destiny 2, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and Deathloop, as well as the upcoming Outriders by Square Enix. Throughout this course, I will teach you how to create cinematic environment shots from scratch to final comp. We will achieve this using a professional pipeline, taking into account the various obstacles you might encounter in a studio environment. While studying my workflow and exploring the tools I use daily, you will learn to understand the role of a matte painter in today's industry. My goal with this course is to give you a thorough overview of the process and a simple approach so you can tackle any type of environment shot for your projects. Whether you're a 2D matte painter looking to learn more about 3D techniques, a 3D environment artist looking to learn more about matte painting, or just an aspiring artist hungry to learn, this course will teach you the knowledge and skills required to make it in this complex industry. You'll even end up with a beautiful finished product to use in your portfolio. Enroll today and start your journey at learnsquare.com. Hello and welcome.
There we go. We're live. Hell yeah. We
Hey.
made it. We actually made it, dude.
Awesome.
We actually made it. I want to start with
Cool.
an apology for canceling Monday because it just didn't work out. We had some conflict. Let's call it politically correct. Call it conflict of schedules.
Yeah.
Just to be nice about it.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. We know whose fault that is. Wink, wink is mine.
No worries.
But we finally made it. We're gonna hear your friendly dog in the background. That's fine too.
Yeah.
That's gonna be our companion towards
Yeah.
throughout the show.
But he only barks whenever somebody opens the door, and somebody just opened it right now, just when it started for some reason, you know.
That's funny, dude. That's funny.
Yeah.
But we made it. We're here. We're here to talk about your class, dude.
Awesome. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. The class looks absolutely amazing. The trailer looks great. You know, I've
Awesome.
heard you got some feedback from people already, so
Yeah.
that's great. Class has been released. I think it was last week or this week.
Uh,
I can't
man,
remember.
time is a weird thing for me. I
Dude,
don't know.
I'll tell you. I don't even know what day it is.
I totally get you. I know. I only know it's Friday because we have the stream. That's how I know it.
Yeah. Do you get yourself like tangled in so much work sometimes where it's just like what day of the week it is, you know? Like
Sometimes I just skip days. Like I think it was 2 weeks ago at work. It was Friday, and I totally was absolutely sure that it was Thursday. I had no doubt about it. It was the weirdest thing ever. I was like, where the fuck did this day go? I mean,
yeah. I you know, the only way I can tell whether it's like weekend or non-weekend is if my daughter is in school or not, you know.
all right. So for me, that's a bit easier because now I work in house, so we don't work on the weekends. So I can
Okay,
tell
yeah.
because of that.
Well, then you have a healthy life.
Sort of, I guess.
Okay, so let's introduce you. I'm pretty sure most of the folks that are going to join the stream are already on the stream, already know who you are. But what we usually do is once we finish streaming, it all goes to YouTube. So people who stumble upon the stream, the video of the stream, you know,
Mhm.
might be like, oh, who is this guy? I like the trailer. Like, I want to know. I want to learn a little more about this
Sure.
dude. So yeah,
Cool.
let's talk about Steven Cormann, who you
Yeah.
are, what are you all
So,
about.
yeah, where to start? I mean, yeah, so my name is Steven. Right now, I am lead matte painter at Axis Animation in Glasgow, in Scotland. I've been working in industry for not that long, to be honest, for 5 years. It still feels a bit weird whenever I say that. But, you know, I had a pretty late start because I pretty much started when I was about to turn 30 because I was into music before that. So, yeah, I started about 5 years ago, 2014, with the goal to be matte painter / concept artist. And yeah, so I had been working freelance for a while until I joined ILM. That was 2 years ago. So that was like my first in-house job. And since then, I would say, yeah, things have been pretty good. So I've been working like on stuff like commercials, game cinematics, films for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I did some pitch also, because I do like in-house, I do mostly matte painting, but I do some concept art on the side as well. So yeah, so I would say it's been now 3 years that things have been going pretty well for me, like in terms of
Mm.
matte painting and concept art, working on some films, TV shows, and commercials. And about a year ago, I accepted like a full-time position at Axis Animation, where I am now. It's not called Axis Animation anymore, by the way. It's Axis Studio now.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
I
so
used to
it's been
work with them
almost a
before
year.
too.
Yeah,
Those are
I know.
awesome people.
Yeah, they're really good people. I gotta say, I'm really having a blast here. In terms of like company culture and the people, I think it's like one of the best experience I've ever had. So I'm really happy to be here. That being said, I'm about to leave. uh, Not because I don't like it, but just because I have pretty cool things coming up next year that I cannot wait to share. I really cannot talk about it now, but it's definitely gonna be a huge step in my career, I guess. Quite a big change of direction also. So yeah, so that's about where I'm at now. Started 5 years ago, and yeah, that's about it.
It's good, man. Like you skyrocketed into the business, like right into the big league.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know.
that's what people tend to say when they look back at what I've done, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was kind of older when I started because I was about to turn 30. I'm 35 now,
Hmm.
and I think I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it. So I was able to really focus on my efforts from the start on this single thing, and I was also extremely driven and motivated, like I had never been before. So I was really able to do those 16-hour days of work like they were nothing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I would like to have that drive again now. It's not something you can do on the long term, though I think, but
Yeah,
that
for
really
sure.
helped me a lot for like the first year. I think for the first year I was really so freaking driven. I used to work like 16 to 18 hours per day, and that definitely helped me a lot, like with a clear vision and clear goal. So I think that played a
Yeah.
big role.
I think that with age, it kind of like fades away a little bit.
Probably, yeah, yeah,
I've noticed
yeah,
that. I used to like work crazy hours. I still work a lot, but
yeah.
nowhere near what I would do like even just like 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah, yeah. But to me, I think one of the reasons I was able to do that is that I've always wanted to do something in film since I was a little kid. Like the oldest
Hmm.
thing I can remember has to do with films and art, right? And for a long time, it's something I had put like in the back of my mind. It's something I never thought I would ever do. But at the same time, it was always something that excited me tremendously. So when I realized that I could do it and that I was gonna do it, that really, I don't know, filled me with an insane amount of motivation like I had never felt before. So I think it was also that, despite the fact that I was slightly older, yeah.
Yeah, you're old, dude. Like 35, dude. You're on like your end of the road.
No, I guess it's still young, but I mean, compared to people who start like at age 18, you know what I mean? Like they go to school, then at age 21, they work like in a major studio.
Hmm.
So my past was a bit different in that sense, I guess, but yeah. But I also found out that age really doesn't matter at all. I mean,
No,
in
it
my
does not.
opinion.
I think what
Yeah,
matters is your drive, at the end of the
exactly.
day. I know
Yeah,
quite a few young people that are like really driven and they are going really far with it.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
then, if you don't have that drive and you're like just procrastinating all the time, eventually it's just
Yeah,
gonna catch up with you and people that are more driven gonna,
yeah,
take over. I guess like if you're younger, you can just work a little more.
yeah,
A little
absolutely.
later, sleep a little less.
That's
But
the thing. I think I was sort of lucky when I was 30 to be jobless. Because I mean, I was just getting out of this music thing that I had been doing for a long time. So I
mm,
had no normal job. So I had quite a lot of time on my hands. So in that sense, I was sort of lucky, I guess, to be able to dedicate so much time to this.
yeah, makes sense. But
Yeah.
here we are in 2019 and worked out
Yeah.
really well for you. So
Yeah, no, I gotta say I'm pretty lucky and pretty happy with where I'm at now.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, that's just like a testament. Well, you've learned pretty fast.
Hmm.
Got to like really good point. I mean, working with ILM and Axis, studios, not
Yeah.
animation anymore, studios.
Yeah.
That's like the top 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 of the
Yeah, and,
top of the
it's
game.
funny because I've always been like a massive Jurassic Park fan. That's like the key movie that really
Hmm.
inspired me when I was a kid.
And it's so weird and funny that my first real in-house gig was to work at ILM on Jurassic World. That was like, man, that I wonder if that's a coincidence or if it's actually, is a higher power at work there. It's kind of funny because it could have been like any movie, but it had to be that one.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. I mean, because this is kind of a question here on the stream as well. Someone asked, like, how did you get your first job? I want to kind of get
Yeah,
people to know, how did
right.
you, like, we know how you went in through like different jobs, and
Yeah,
how your career progressed. How
yeah.
did you get into it? Like, what
So,
what motivated you to actually become,
well,
artist
the
in the first place?
motivation from me really came to finally doing something I'd always dreamed about. That was really because when I started this thing, I was really in need of proving something to myself that I could accomplish something because I felt like I was really getting out of a big failure when it comes to like my career.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I was going to turn 30 and that I had no real plan for my future. I felt like I hadn't really accomplished anything, so I had to prove something to me. And the fact that I was going to do that really, I don't know, inspired me a lot because I was in this mental state where I knew I was going to succeed. I cannot explain why, but it was so clear in my mind that I absolutely knew I was going to make it because it was just logic. I knew exactly what the skills were that I needed to acquire. I sort
Mm-hmm.
of knew how much time it could take. I knew I was extremely driven to do it, so I sort of knew I was going to make it, to be honest. And I don't want to sound like pretentious. It's just that it was logic to me.
Right.
It totally seemed like a path in which luck wasn't involved, at least in my case. So it was just a matter of doing those things, and I knew it was going to work out. So I just started to work as hard as I could, and right from the start, I started also to connect with people from the industry. Not in a really needy way, though. I think I never messaged anyone really. It was just more about going to events, meeting people,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly over time the relationships, build it themselves. And at the same time, I started like to produce an insane amount of work on a very regular basis. And with every piece I was doing, I was always trying to push it to its maximum potential. And I just started to post this stuff online, as much as I could on our station, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And it's just that slowly, I guess, people started to notice me once again because of ArtStation and going to events. And slowly, a job offer started to come. That's the best way I can explain it. And the job offers got better and better. I would say also one thing that helped me in my case was the ArtStation ILM challenge in 2016. So I knew I was not gonna win, but I was absolutely determined to get noticed by the guys at ILM. I knew, okay, this is my chance. This is insane. Those guys are actually gonna look at our work, so they need to notice me somehow. So I think I really gave everything into that, and it actually paid off because that's the reason why I got to work at ILM a few years later. So that's how I got in. It's just by producing work and meeting people and getting noticed slowly. I never applied anywhere, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I never applied anywhere when I think about it. I just always, because I could afford to do it. I had some savings, so
Gotcha.
I just worked as hard as I could until job offers started to come. And I waited for the best job offers to finally accept it. And okay, now I'm gonna leave my lonely life at home and I'm gonna take this job because this is the job that I actually want.
That makes sense. Yeah, like being a little picky at the start, but that's
Yeah, I mean,
good.
I
That's
I
good.
took a risk. I thought to myself, okay, I'm about 30. I don't want to really start from the bottom, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think I had heard like a talk by Bobby Sue, and he said something like, "Don't start at the bottom, try to start from the top, and if it doesn't work, start just below." And that was sort of my idea. Okay, I'm gonna try to start from the top. I'm gonna try to have ILM as my first gig, and it sort of almost worked actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Almost like, well, eventually, like what,
I did some gigs
2 years
before
in.
ILM, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, 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 crazy. Yeah, you went pretty good, pretty fast. I remember when
Yeah.
I started, it's just, yeah, it took me like 10 years to get anywhere.
But the way I look at it also took me 10 years because I did a lot of stuff before that failed.
Mm,
So, but I feel like when I finally decided to work on this to become like an artist, it all made sense suddenly. That's my dog again. I'm sorry, guys.
yeah, don't worry about it.
It's just that I may have started 5 years ago, but in my head, it's like I've started 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess all your life experiences, everything you've learned throughout, your first 30 years,
Yeah.
led you to that point where you had
Exactly.
enough confidence, skill,
Yeah.
everything to sort of like tackle
Absolutely.
this whole
Yeah.
thing and like,
Confidence was a big thing for sure, because it's
mm,
funny. I mean, I realized that I had spent like 30 years without really knowing why I wasn't even trying to do it. And I think it's maybe because I was raised in Belgium, and when I was 18, when it was time like to choose a job, there was no real internet, so I couldn't find any way how I could do something on movies. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do on movies. It could be like directing or acting.
mhm.
I didn't even know. So that's maybe also why it took me so long, to finally put the pieces of this puzzle together, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you did, so that
Yeah, I'm
works
glad I
out.
did. I feel like,
Um,
I picked myself up at the last minute, like after that it was gonna be too late, which is not true. I don't think it's ever too late, but
I don't think I mean, look, this is a question that happens quite often as well. Like, oh, like
yeah,
I'm 20 something, or I'm 30, I'm 40.
yeah.
Is it too late for me to start? And
No,
it's
I mean,
not. It's really not, right?
but you gotta be willing to make some sacrifices. I think that might be harder to do when you're a bit older, I guess,
Mm,
because you gotta find time to work if you want to make it. So if you start when you're 40 and you have a family, another job, well, you might need more courage to leave that job and find some time to work on your skills, I guess. It might be more difficult to find that energy when you're a bit older. But
yeah.
other than that, I don't think age matters at all.
Yeah, well, like the older you get, the more complex your life becomes. Because
Yes. Hmm.
yeah, like if you have family, that's like a whole new deal that you have to take into
Absolutely. Yeah.
consideration. Because like you cannot just like drop everything and
Yeah.
live with your parents, and like if you, especially if you
Yeah.
have family and kids, that's just like that's not possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just, as you said, just becomes a little more complex, a little more difficult. You have a
Yeah.
little less energy. But then again, the older you get, you might have more confidence, you might have more
Yes.
experience.
Absolutely.
You might be a little more leveled in your decision making as well. Like your
Absolutely.
decisions will be more based on what's good for you, rather than just like your idealistic view of what's good for you. Let's put it
That
this
is
way.
so true, because when I think about it now, when I was 18, I really had no fucking idea where I was going or what I wanted to do. It's kind of baffling when I think about it now.
Isn't it
So,
isn't it that like up until age of like what, 25 ish, so somewhere around like your mid 20s, your brain actually is fully developed, right? Like up until
yeah.
then, I think it's
Yeah, I
your
think I've heard
frontal
something like that
cortex.
as well, indeed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like not fully developed, and your decision making is like really impaired. I mean, obviously, if you're genetically gifted to be a conscientiousness, have like a really
Yeah.
high on the conscientiousness, and
Hmm.
be good at decision making, that's a
Yeah.
different story. But like your brain development really doesn't stop until, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's an argument whether it actually stops or not. We
Hmm.
don't know. I'm not a scientist. Don't listen to me, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I can tell you that after like my mid 20s, I was definitely more wise about my decisions than when I was a
Yeah, no, me
teenager.
too, for sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And also, earlier you mentioned, and it's sort of like a segue, and that's going to be a segue to your class. You when you started working as matte painter, you've mentioned that you're also doing concept art. I guess those two kind of these
Yeah,
days are very sort of like intertwined. Because
yeah,
when I'm working on some of the movies, oftentimes what I find out is that once the movie goes into like the VFX phase, there is a lot of concept art done, and a lot
yeah.
of concept art is done by matte painters as well.
Yeah, it is true. Absolutely. And I actually find myself doing a lot of concept art in post-production most of the time because at that stage, the art department is not available anymore. So I do a lot of paint overs on some frames and stuff like that. So there's definitely some work to do, yeah. But in my case, the fact that I was doing both right from the start, I think it's just because I was driven to do cool images that
Mm-hmm.
I'd always wanted to do, and to some extent, I also wanted to see them move. I wanted to make movies basically one frame at a time or one shot at a time, if you will.
Right.
So that's why I guess I was driven to do both from the start, probably. I would say I'm more of a matte painter for sure, because whenever I do concept art, it's pretty much all the time just keyframes or paint overs, like to establish the lighting, sky, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I'm probably more of a matte painter these days.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
those two sort of like intertwine in the
Yeah.
industry. Like one of the things, because I've learned matte painting back in 2009. Like I
Right.
really paid attention to compositing, like
Yeah.
3D. Like that's where I started learning those things. And
Yeah.
man, like I can tell you that once I got a taste of it and understanding on what matte painting really is,
Hmm.
how it's affecting films, like what and you watch films these days. Like I was watching I think it was No Country for Old Men, like sort
Yeah.
of the VFX breakdown, and I could not believe that
Yeah.
shots that look just super regular.
Yeah.
I was like,
Absolutely.
that was CG. Like, holy hell,
Yeah.
dude. Or
That's why I'm so pissed whenever I go to the cinema and I hear people complaining about CG. I'm like, guys, you have no idea.
one of my favorite films that came out recently, like Sicario, like that whole
Yeah.
border scene was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh
I know
my
exactly
god,
what
like
you mean.
all like
Really good stuff.
so much CG in there, and you
Yeah.
cannot
Absolutely.
tell. Like it just looks
Yeah.
so real.
Absolutely. No, it's
Um,
everywhere. People have no idea. Yeah.
but yeah, it's just like the matte painting is like sort of like the art of faking
Yeah.
the screen, like everything that's on the screen, and hiding what's real and what isn't. It's not about
Yes.
beautiful landscapes. I guess Lord of the Rings kind of skewed what
Yeah.
matte painting is for everybody.
Yeah. Because, I mean, yeah, the industry has also pretty much changed those last years. I think everybody still has in mind, Dylan Cole and his amazing paintings from Lord of the Rings, but
Hmm.
that was very much like early 2000 up maybe until 2010. I feel like since 2010, 11, everything has gone a lot more technical in CG, at
Hmm.
least when it comes to feature films, like major feature films. But the kind of matte painting that Dylan Cole was doing, it's not done that much anymore, sadly, on feature films. More on TV shows. When you watch Game of Thrones, they do have like a lot of matte painting shots.
Right.
But these days, otherwise, it's pretty much like CG environments, I think. And that's why I'm pretty happy also to be at Axis, because they let me do all the cool stuff.
That's great. Yeah,
I
I
only do
guess
the cool looking landscape, so that's cool.
that's awesome. Yeah, I guess like well, I mean, it used to be, even a couple of years ago, I remember when I was joining Film Union,
Yeah.
like sort of if you met someone who's working for TV, it was like like they're sort of like they're just working on TV, like we're in the
Yeah.
feature film. But then
Hmm.
Game of Thrones came out, and it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna shit on films and make this show better,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
then,
No.
oh, like TV, and then Netflix came along with some
Yeah.
shows that were like really great. So now it's like
Yeah.
all even.
Yeah. And
Um,
now even like the major VFX studios who used to work only on films start to work on TV shows. Now there's ILM TV, for example, now. So
mhm.
yeah, the industry has really shifted in that sense.
Yeah, it definitely did. Definitely did.
Yeah.
So I want to segue from this into your class, because like
Yeah.
I asked specifically about concept art and matte painting, because like that's my personal experience. Once I've learned like the basics of matte painting and like what is it all about, and then actually practiced it, like learning it and actually doing some matte paintings as well, it opened my mind to little better, well, not little, much better understanding of realism,
Yeah.
lighting, like all of those things, and that like directly translated to basically everything I'm doing right now in concept art. Like
Yeah.
just the emphasis on lighting, the emphasis
Yeah.
on like realism, proper texture use, cameras, like even just diving into matte painting made me want to do photography as well.
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
that by itself kind of like opened the completely different kind of worms.
Yeah. Absolutely.
um so anyways, I want to talk about your class. and yeah, your experience doing it, what the class is about,
Yep.
what people can expect by taking the course, and what you if you were a student yourself, like what kind of expectations that
Yeah.
would be for yourself as well.
Yeah. So I think my idea with the course was really to show exactly what I do on a daily basis. Because what I have found out in the industry is that everybody sort of has his or her own workflow
Mm-hmm.
to do this kind of stuff. So I wanted to show mine, which is really a combination of plenty of different stuff.
Hello.
The goal is to create a cinematic shots. It's what I do all the time at Axis, is create those big, establishing opening shots.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to be able to do that with whatever techniques is necessary. So that's why the shot I'm doing for the course is really divided in two. One part is like fully CG animated, and then it's extended using 2D projected matte painting techniques. And the thing about doing this kind of stuff is that it can get technical really quickly because you have so much softwares and techniques involved. So my idea was to try to show like a melting pot of all those techniques, but in a pretty simple way, easy to understand. So even a beginner, I think, should be able to complete an entire shot by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything I do is like overly technical because I'm not a super technical guy, actually. I've met guys who are way, way more technical, but the way I've always approached things, is like, okay, I can spend, 2 months learning everything technical about this software, or I can spend 2 months just becoming a better artist, like training my eye a bit more.
Right.
So everything I do, I'm not that precious about it. And I think that will be quite evident when you watch the course. I'm sure if some modelers, like super pro modelers or texture artists, watch my course, they will be like, what the hell is this guy doing? This doesn't make any sense, But that's the way I work, So for example, instead of going to Maury or Substance Painter, well, I would instead, just import a bunch of Megascan textures and do some kind of procedural shaders using my own techniques. Anything that basically gets the job done. Then I would render one frame, I would paint over and reproject it back. So it's a big melting pot of all those different techniques. So the idea is really to be able to get what you have in mind out. So, and it's also, the goal is that a student understands every single one of those techniques, and then it's up to him or her to make that technique involved and see whatever he can do with it.
Right.
But
right,
I try
right.
to show every technique in a kind of simple way, not to overwhelm people, because you just have so much stuff to learn, that I want still the guys to be able to complete something fairly quickly, I guess, even though it's definitely a course that you're probably not going to be able to complete in 2 weeks. Doing this kind of shot can take a long time. When you're in-house, this kind of shot can take weeks, if not months. So yeah, you definitely need to be prepared to be a bit patient, I think.
You know what's funny? It's like when you mentioned the speed, it's sometimes when you, and that's sort of like the skewed perception you can get from when you see artists posting their work, like because they're doing in the snap, like, oh, this is what I did, like blah blah blah, and then you look at another artist doing the work, and then they post the work that they did for film or game, whatever. And once you see like 5 posts, it's like, oh, I'm lazy. But the reality is like, oh, I mean, it took them like 2 years to complete like all that work. So that's sort of like good thing to have in the perspective that it's not just because you're looking at 10 artists, it's not like 10 artists being one, it's like, no, that's the 10 different people.
Yeah, I personally have found that whenever I see something that seems to me must have taken like a long time, it's because it did.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: you're using what's the software you're using for the whole class? Like, what are the software choices?
The core package is Maya along with Redshift. Even though you could use whatever render engine you want, I think. So it's Maya, Photoshop, Nuke. Those are like the 3 core softwares, I think.
And those are like the industry standard as well. I know Maya specifically in VFX. That's sort of like a must, right?
Yeah, and that's why I chose this one. I made the course to be really, industry, like in-house oriented. So I'm not using stuff like, Octane or After Effects because that's not what we use in the VFX house.
Right.
So I really decided to show the workflow exactly like I do it in a studio environment.
How do you think the tools that you use cross-pollinate or like compare against other tools? Meaning, let's say someone who's taking your class is proficient with After Effects, right?
Yeah.
Because Nuke, let's be honest, like Nuke is like a more of an in-house software, right? I think you can get free version.
Yeah, that's also something I want to say, because a lot of people message me telling me, man, Nuke is really expensive. But I say it in the course, you can actually use the free learning version. There's virtually no limitation to it, except that you cannot output in more than full HD. But that's enough, because the output is not more than full HD.
Right.
So, and there's no watermark, so you can use the free version actually. So you can, you don't
and
need to buy Nuke to do the course.
exactly. And I guess the only limitation, like you cannot use it for work.
Yeah, you
work.
actually cannot open your script in the commercial version, but I mean that's fine. I mean, it doesn't limit anything that you want to do. It's cool,
I know. I think Houdini works exactly in the same way. Once you you can get fully functional version for free, which is, I think it's like a student version, but the scripts or the tools you're making in Houdini in that versions are not going to work in the commercial version. You have to ask them to actually translate that. There's just some like workflow or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for Nuke. And by the way, because my course is very much, I guess, a scene assembly course. It's not really a modeling course. It's more a scene assembly thing, because that's what we do at work these days. So obviously I use a lot of different assets from different resources, but from everything that I use in this course, you can find a free or demo version pretty much for everything, I think. So don't worry if you cannot afford some assets or softwares. You can find a free version for it every single time. And I think I say it every time I encounter this in the course, whether it's like using some Megascans, 3D assets, whatever.
Yeah.
So you can find free demo versions for everything, I think.
I would say Megascans is like, these days, if you're not using Megascans, you're crazy. Like for reals.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good, and especially for the kind of stuff that I do, because one of the main reasons why VFX houses still use matte painting, it's because it's fast. It's faster than the pipeline. So usually when you work as a matte painter, you bypass the pipeline. You do like your own shot on the side. So you got to be quick, and that's why using Megascan, especially with the Megascan bridge, is really, really efficient. And that's something I do in the course. I just use the Megascan bridge, and in 2 clicks, I have assets and shaders that are ready to go, and I can just use that. I don't have to go through Mari, Substance, and do any kind of really complex texturing.
Yeah, you can obviously do that if you want to. And we do have courses how to do it. You can model everything yourself, but the reality is, like, even for concept artists, if you can get your hands on assets that are already created, especially stuff that doesn't have to be like overly designed. Let's say if you're working as a concept artist and your task is to make a couple of like really good polished, which happens very rarely if you work in film, scenes like or keyframes with like some really really cool stuff happening, but then like part or like majority of the environment is like something that really exists already. There's no reason for you to build everything from scratch, right? That just makes no sense. It's like if you took a camera and go out into do landscape photography, it was like you would complain like, oh, the trees kind of grew there already, let me just start growing my own trees so I can photograph those. Like it's exactly the same logic, right?
Yeah,
just
totally.
use what's available and quote unquote legal to use.
And also, when you work in-house doing this kind of work that I'm showing in the course, very much you will get support from the asset department that will give you some 3D assets and textures.
Yeah. Turbo Squid, big shout out to Turbo Squid. I love those guys.
Absolutely.
I use their assets for like commercial work and film work as well. There's just no reason to, like, if you can save time to do something, and sometimes investing, like paying for assets that has been already created, it's actually saving you money in the long term. Because let's say you work for a client and I don't know, let's pick a subject. You're doing a landscape, right? A landscape with the town, like exactly what you're doing in your course. Actually, let's say you're doing that, and that's your actual client work, where you have to make like shot like that. You're not gonna model everything. You're not gonna build all the houses and the trees and whatnot. You're gonna find those buildings online, especially if those are like, let's say, medieval stuff. You can go on Turbo Squid. You're gonna find a large library. Let's say if you got a budget to do it, let's say I don't know I don't know what the budgets are for like creating a shot. Let's say it's $10,000, right?
Yeah.
It's I guess a little lower end for like a really complex shot.
Yeah.
But that's your budget. If you would have to build everything from scratch in a shot like that, right? That would take you at least a month, if not
Absolutely.
more, right?
Yeah.
More than that easily.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes your time worth much less, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if you can spend $2,000 on assets, let's say, well, $2,000 is a lot of money, but you have everything. All you have to do is just assemble. Then how long is it gonna take you to assemble the scene once you have everything ready to go? Like,
Yes.
not that much, right? Like maybe a week.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So now you're comparing $10,000 for like over a month of work versus $8,000 for a week of work.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess the math kind of works, better for the latter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that can be missed really really easily. I think people like, oh, like, why would I pay for if I can make it myself? Yeah, you can make everything yourself. It's just like you're paying to save time, because your time eventually becomes more worth than.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally true.
So anyways, so your course then, if we would find a way to describe it in the short term, would be basically a workflow of how you create a shot.
That's really what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like how you assemble, how you approach, what's sort of like the clear and cut approach to make a shot like that without overthinking it, basically speaking.
Exactly. Yes. Because I mean, when you do something like this, you're like a one-man army. So that's why I tried, to show every technique in its simple form, but also in a very efficient way, so you can also actually get something cool out of it. Because I mean, when you work in-house, I mean, as I said, you have like an army of modelers, texture artists. It's very much a team effort.
Yeah.
But my goal was to show what you could do as a one-man army using different assets and stuff like that. Because that's pretty much what you do when you are a senior matte painter, or generalist these days, how would they call it. Usually companies hire only senior guys because those guys can bypass the pipeline and deliver a finished shot in a minimum amount of time.
Right.
And that's what I try to showcase here.
What's great about learning that stuff, like understanding the whole pipeline and knowing where to take shortcuts and how to become really efficient about it, is that, as you said, you become like a one-man orchestra almost, right?
Yeah.
And we're kind of, I feel like the industry is sort of approaching this point where a single artist can do what studios used to do, but now they can do it by themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I know a bunch of like really top level matte painters. We all hear Dunkel and all those guys. Dunkel, I think now is a production designer in films.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is a bunch of guys that are on such a high level where they literally take a full matte painting shots for films, for like Star Wars production, like Star Wars, Alice in Wonderland, like all of those films, and they do the whole shot by themselves, matte painting, compositing, and all that stuff. But since they're doing it by themselves, they get the whole budget for that shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I gotta say, if you can learn all those skills and if you can deliver a final shot, I mean, you'll get work. You'll get a lot of work. That's the cool thing, because there are not many guys who do this kind of stuff these days.
Yeah.
At least as freelancers, but even in-house, I found out that most of the time people do one or another thing, but not the whole package.
Right.
So if you manage to learn the whole package, well, you'll get a lot of work. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And even if that's not your goal, like, hey, would I want to learn this course? I'm not a matte painter. I don't want to be a matte painter. Like, yes, do it. Like, that's everything is moving towards 3D, right? These days.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think anybody could learn something, especially since, as I've said, I've not made it overly technical. I think pretty much anybody could follow this course. I think if you have, maybe you've never touched any 3D software, you might need to be a bit patient. But for example, the Nuke stuff, I think you can be a total beginner and follow this thing for sure.
Okay, so like if you never touched Nuke, you can pick up a course and still
I think so, because the stuff I show in Nuke is quite simple. It's just that you might have to be patient to experiment with some techniques. For example, the camera projection thing, I do a separate lesson about that where I show exactly how it works. But the thing about camera projections is that it's gonna be a different scenario for almost every shot. So you might have to experiment a little bit with that.
Right.
But from
But
a
you can-
technical point of view, there's nothing complicated.
If you even if you just decided to follow step by step what you did, like just hey,
Yeah.
I want to make a copy of Steve Cormann's course.
Yeah, you
Like,
can do that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've learned specifically is that learning new software, you kind of want to start with that. That I found it to be the most efficient. Where
I totally agree. Yeah.
yeah, you pick up, you just replicate someone else's approach.
Exactly. That's
You
what
can
I've
do it-
always done.
Mhm.
Before I wasn't understanding anything about 3D, I just grabbed this GNOME on DVD and I just did everything click by click without understanding what it was doing. But in the end, it made sense. And so yeah, that's what I would do. You just follow click by click. You just replicate the same thing.
Yeah, you get familiar with the environment you're working in, and obviously, usually what happens is like, oh, I want to make this, but I don't know how, right? But once
Yeah.
you learn the basics, like, oh, this is how the workflow works. This is what I need to do in order to achieve that final step.
Yeah.
But hey, like, I want to change this, I want to change that. That's when you kind of go on your own and figure
Yeah.
out, okay, so what are the extracurricular stuff that I need to learn in order to do that. But the funny part about it is that you would never ask yourself that question if you wouldn't if you wouldn't try the sort of like the bulletproof already existing approach that has been explained by a professional.
Yeah.
So cool. So that's good. All right. I think that gives an idea of what the course is about. So
Yeah.
let's jump into the lessons specifically. Let's
Yes.
look into. We have the course is broken down into 4 lessons, and let's talk about each of them in more details. What people can
Sure.
expect by taking each lesson, what kind of homework you're expecting, or like especially if you're a mentorship which is already sold out, I think. What kind of expectations you're gonna have towards your mentorship students, but also if you're buying the course and you're not a mentorship student, you're just buying the course for the training material, you kind of want to follow the homework aspects as well, just for
Probably.
your own good. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, let's jump into that. Let's talk about the lessons.
Yes. So yeah, first lesson, planning. This lesson is very much first about just teaching a little bit what matte painting is about exactly these days in the industry, because it's something a lot of people don't understand or don't know. Even in VFX studios, a lot of guys don't exactly know what DMP artists do or how they do it. I think people still have in mind, those beautiful polished landscapes when we talk about matte painting. So, in what I'm doing here in this first lesson is breaking down a few, demo reels from VFX studios, a little bit of my work as well, and I clearly show what matte painting is all about these days. So I break down a few shots. I also do a short lesson about camera projections. Camera projection is like one of the most powerful tool a matte painter can use. I explain all that in the course, but that's what will allow you, for example, to transform a 2D still image into an animation, basically, by faking the 3D effect to really keep it super simple. So that is a really critical tool that I explain into this separate video lesson. Then it starts to be about the actual shot. So I explain also briefly the different types of workflow you might encounter, because that's also the thing about matte painting. You might have a totally different type of workflow for every shot. It's really up to you to come up with the best workflow possible depending on your shot. So it changes from one shot to the other. There's never like a clear way to do something that you'll be able to use again on every shot. So that's why I go a little bit, through all the different types of workflow you might encounter. And then we come up with a brief builder, because, since this course is very much about scene assembly, it is not that much about design, because when I do this kind of stuff in-house, I'm almost always given a color script or a piece of concept art. So this course is not about design. It's more about taking this concept to the next phase. That being said, you don't always have a concept, but even when you don't have one, you get quite a precise brief. And so that's why we put together this brief builder. Since in this case, we're not working in a studio environment, nobody is giving us a brief. So we found a way to come up with a brief for our shot here.
Right.
And so I go through the different, points that are really important to know before we tackle a shot like this. Stuff like, for example, what time of the day it is. That's something I always absolutely need to know before I start doing any type of outdoor landscape. I need to know exactly where the sun is, like, the angle, the height in the sky. I absolutely need to know that. And I need to know also, for example, the type of sky. Is it sunset, overcast, clear sky? I need to know the type of landscape I'm dealing with, if it's something tropical, Nordic, whatever. And in this case, also the type of architecture, since we have some buildings. So you have this brief builder into which you can choose those different elements and combine them together. So you have like a clear brief before you actually start. So that's what the whole first lesson is all about. It's all about planning everything as best as you can, finding the right reference. So I explain exactly what type of reference I look for and where I find them. So that's lesson 1, all about planning. And because, when you do this shot, you're going to have to work for probably weeks or months. So you really want to plan that as efficiently as possible, not to get confused or lost later.
Get everything
it's quite
sort
a
of
critical
like
part.
built together. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of homework we can expect? If you're like, okay, I've done the lesson. Now what?
Well, if I remember correctly, among the homework, for example, whenever I break down a shot from the demo reels I have, where I explain exactly how the shots are made, one of the homeworks is for students, for example, to look at demo reels online and to try to figure out how the shots are constructed. Okay, this is CG, this is where the DMP start, this is FX. So to really train the students to understand the VFX pipeline, I guess, so they can better approach their shot. They can better decide, okay, this part of the shot, I'm going to actually render the full CG animation, but for this shot, I can just do a projection. Because in my shot, like the first half of the shot is fully CG animated, and the second half is fully 2D projected. So I really want the students to be able to recognize when they need to switch to projection or when they need to actually render the full 3D sequence. So that's why one of their homeworks will be to just look at shots, and try to understand how those shots are built.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's just like it's the whole preparation, understanding the pipeline, and okay, this
and
is
after
where...
and after they've done that, well, to come up with a few briefs, and according to those briefs, find the right reference in the way I'm teaching it in the course. So, for example, look for the type of sky, type of landscape. Because, one thing I always do, for example, is to have one piece of solid reference that has pretty much everything I need. So, okay, the sun is there. I know exactly how the fog looks. I know how the clouds are lit. And because one thing, when you work in films in live action, very often you need to match an existing plate, like a live action plate. In this case, since we create the whole shot, we don't have a plate. So one of the homeworks is actually to find a plate, that one piece of reference image that you're going to use as a plate. So you're going to try to match the lighting of that photo.
Right. I'm actually looking on the screen and showing some of the homework that's already been done for this lesson. That's actually from Matt English, who is on the stream with us. So.
Awesome.
That's awesome. It basically just visualize everything you said. So
cool.
Perfect. Awesome. So that's lesson 1.
Yes.
What do we do after? So once that obviously is lesson 2. What
lesson 2 is what? Lesson 2 is actually also all about planning, but in a more practical way. So you're actually gonna work now in the different softwares, because whenever you need to tackle a shot like this, once again, it's something that will probably last weeks, if not months. So one thing you want to do is to lay out the foundations, exactly like the foundations of a house. On top, you can then build up of. So it's all gonna be about doing like a basic 3D blockout using extremely basic shapes. So, for example, don't worry if you're not like a modeler. It's not about modeling at all. It's just about bashing stuff in CG space very quickly and then animating on camera. So we have like the foundations of this shot that are ready. And once you have that foundation inside of Maya, to also have this foundation inside of Nuke. So you have your shot that is live, both inside of Nuke and inside of Maya. So once you have all that, you can start to build upon that and really detail everything, which is what lesson 3 is all about. But lesson 2 is all about establishing the foundations of your shot.
Right. So just basically a layout. I think in
Exactly.
video games we call it block mesh, basically. Just like
Exactly. That's what. Yeah, it's doing a block out. Animating the camera, just putting the basic geometry, making sure you're working in a real world scale. I think I also briefly speak about color spaces because that's also a subject that can be really, really confusing, especially these days. And it's something you will have to deal with when you work in house. So I deal with that a little
right.
bit. It's all about establishing a really rough and basic lighting, establishing the really basic folders also, because you have to deal with a lot of different type of files, software. So,
Right.
I explain how I organize my scene, my different files. Then it's all about rendering the really basic elements, establishing a basic projection setup in Nuke. So we have what we call a matte painting bash. So it's this really rough version of the matte painting that is ready to go inside of Nuke and inside of Maya.
That makes sense. It's like I would compare it to if you're doing illustration that it's like on a realistic level, it's like comparing it to, hey, let me find, like, the lesson one would be I'm finding photo references for what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sketching out the idea. The second one is like I'm bashing things together for like my photo bash, and then we go from there.
Exactly.
What's interesting is that, like, how this workflow translates to everything else. Like, that is a good example. Another good example is, you're friends with Ash Thorpe as well.
Yeah.
Like, me and Ash are like really close, and so I get behind the closed door kind of like access to pretty much every film that he does. Like, he just like spams with me with that stuff. But it's really interesting because, like, how it's all broken down, how he's approaching each film, it's like almost to a T with how you would approach this class, in terms of like not exact same steps, but the sort of like the overarching idea on how you prepare, like the preparation for the for the film. If you're making your own short film, making sure you're preparing everything on like the highest level of understanding what details you're going to do, how long the shot's going to be, all that stuff is just so important.
That's exactly what this lesson is all about. Yeah, it's exactly what this lesson is all about. It's just preparing everything. Yeah.
So I'm guessing like the homework result would be some kind of like a block out you're gonna have for your scene. Like this is what the scene's gonna basically flow.
Yeah.
How it's
exactly.
Flow.
It's like, absolutely, and also playing a little bit with the camera moves, because that's something I also see a lot in people who are new to moving shots. They usually do camera moves if they have no experience that are kind of, I don't know, not really good. So one of the homework is to come up with a few different camera moves, and really pay attention to, for example, the physicality of the camera. You really do not want to do a camera move that is completely fake and impossible.
Yeah.
Because that actually makes your shot looks completely fake, even if you have the best shading and rendering possible. Now, don't get me wrong, it might be a choice, and sometimes it's cool. I know that Peter Jackson loves those kind of, impossible virtual crane shots, and sometimes it's cool, if the story wants it, then why not?
Well, I'm guessing now with drones, like, people get so used to the drone footage that eventually those impossible shots can be like, oh yeah, it's a drone shot,
Exactly. And it's funny because while I explained that into the course, at some point in the course, and I say it, I don't hide it, I'm also, okay, guys, as you can see, I personally feel like my shot is too fast. This is not a realistic camera move, so I'm simply gonna extend the frame range so the camera moves a bit slower. So I still make those kinds of mistakes, and the whole course is really about doing a lot of back and forth, actually. It's really trying to improve anything you can whenever you see it. So I didn't cut anything, because even I, as best as I try to plan everything, some stuff is still going to change later on, and that's all part of the process. It's normal. So that's also some stuff I show in the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was about to say that, your shot looks like, oh, like what if drones were in medieval times,
Yeah, and I gotta say, I went for something actually not that used to, something a bit more fantasy, so it's not necessarily super hyper realistic, but I thought, why not? Let's go for something a bit like, I don't know, like, fantasy, like I don't know, Maleficent or whatever, Harry Potter.
Sure. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Cool. So then we jump into lesson 3. Like after you get your block
Yeah.
out, you're ready
So
to get
that's
more
the fun
advanced.
part to me. It's the fun part. It's really pushing everything as far as you can when it comes to the 3D. So in this case, I'm not dealing yet with the 2D matte painting part. So everything I deal with here is my 3D base, and I'm simply pushing it as far as I can. So I detail the models. I do a little bit of effects. I do a water simulation, for example, inside of Maya. I deal once again with color spaces and conversion of textures. I deal with some 3D trees, so I explain exactly how I shade them for Redshift in this case. I explain how I scatter them to create like a believable forest. I explain also what exactly I'm rendering and how, so how I tweak my render settings to get like the best possible render times, and so on. So it's really about bringing everything to its maximum potential, like modeling, shading, rendering.
Yeah. I think what's important to understand, and because I'm pretty sure that might be a question eventually, whether
Yeah.
it's on the stream or not, or later on, someone's like, okay, like all of this in one lesson. It's like that's
Yeah.
again like going back to the idea. This is sort of like explaining the workflow, how you
Yeah.
approach those things, because like each of the
Exactly.
topics you've mentioned, that by itself could be its own like 8-hour course. If you want to go
Exactly.
like really into details, like I like the water detailing
Yeah.
water, like you can do a whole class about how to detail water, whether it's
Yeah.
going through overpainting or doing your own simulations. Like that's just such a large topic. It would be
Absolutely.
almost, if you would do detailed version of everything in that class, that would be like the largest class ever made
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
existence of
And
humanity.
and that's why, it might seem like there are a lot of stuff. There are a lot of different techniques, but once again, I show every one of them in a simple way. Then it's just up to you to repeat them as much time as you need to complete your shot. So that's where you need to be patient, simply. It's more about repeating the same process all over again. It's nothing really that hard to understand, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's more about just being patient enough to complete the size of the shot, especially if you're used like to complete like, I don't know, concept painting in one day. Then you might find yourself, okay, no, I gotta be more patient to complete this thing. This is about really polishing everything as much as you can. So you just need to be patient, but there's nothing really technical, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I'll say that from my personal experience is that understanding the workflow, like how things were supposed to work,
Yeah.
is more valuable than knowing a tool, because the tool is
Yeah.
something. There's just like for
Absolutely.
every tool that you are using in the class, there is so much free material out there, especially from like if you're learning Nuke. I'm pretty sure Nuke has its own like training material that is
Oh yeah,
available for free,
absolutely.
right? Same with
Absolutely.
Maya, same with Max, like all of those
Absolutely.
software. It used to be a huge deal to get to learn software because just nothing was online
Yeah.
in existence, right? Now those companies, Autodesk and like if you're using Blender, there's just so much material for Blender, just even from like the creators of Blender.
Yep.
If you're using 3ds Max, like Autodesk has its own sort of like a huge library of training material. If you're using Fusion, Maya, V, like all of those softwares have a huge free library coming from the creators of the
Yep.
software that explain every single detail step by step. So it would be
Yeah.
pretty ridiculous idea just to like, oh, let me repeat that so you like you
Yeah,
know what I
no,
mean?
totally. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the missing information is something you can find for free, and it's relevant for like yourself, but not relevant for what the class is about. Meaning like that's the workflow,
Yeah.
because like all of those tools can be easily replaced with something else, right? Let's say
Exactly. Absolutely.
if someone's using 3ds Max or Blender, they
Yeah.
can do the class as well, right? As long as they
Yeah, I'm
have
pretty sure. Yeah.
good
You know,
understanding on how
yeah,
the
a lot of
software
people
works.
have asked me this question. In my opinion, you can use whatever 3D software that you want because they all pretty much work the same.
Right.
It's just that I do use certain nodes that are maybe only in Redshift. So you just might have to dig to find what is your alternative, like in
Right.
Blender or something like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it, really. Because I do a lot of blend shaders for my shading. Because as I said, I don't use Photoshop or Substance to do my textures. It's pretty much only importing Megascan assets, then creating shaders using nodes inside of Maya and Redshift. But you can do that pretty much in any package. You will just have to find how to do that in your own package. That's pretty much it.
Right. Yeah, and that's important to know, because like why you're choosing the software you chose is because, as we explained in the beginning, that's what major studios that you work with use as their professional pipeline. So if you decide to, okay, let me follow it to the teeth, let me learn, like I'll learn Maya, I'll learn Nuke, like all of those things, that will prepare you to actually work in the VFX studio, because that's like the 101. If you want to work in the VFX, especially if you want to work like as a matte painter in the VFX studio, they will expect you to know Maya.
Yeah. And
least
it's
Maya,
with that
right?
in mind that I did the course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can use After Effects if you want, but I don't think you will learn that much then if you try to use After Effects. At least when it comes to the camera projection thing. I personally don't know how to do camera projections inside of After Effects. I'm sure it's possible because Elon Cole was using it back in the day, but it's a totally different way of working. So that will not be useful if you want to work in-house as a matte painter.
To a certain degree, like even Maya by itself has compatible tools for camera, like not just camera projection, but even compositing, right? Like there is a way to build your scenes and use the tools available in Maya to even just replace Nuke at this point as well.
Yeah, I actually do some projection inside of Maya as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you don't like After Effects, I think Resolve has.
You also have Fusion, which is free. I think Fusion is very similar to Nuke, but I personally have never used it. But I think that if you sort of know Fusion, you will probably be able to follow whatever I do, I think.
I think so too. Fusion was added to Resolve, I think, quite recently, because it used to be its own software, which, as if I'm not mistaken, I might be completely wrong, it's been like over a decade since I was learning it. But when the first compositing software that I've learned was Fusion, actually. And I loved it. I think it was Apple's. It belonged to Apple.
I think you're right. Yeah.
That's back when Apple was actually doing professional grade software. Not apps, just like actual software. But it was awesome. I loved it, and I've learned Nuke as well afterwards. Like Nuke was, I see why Nuke is so powerful. But it was like, compared to Fusion, like Fusion to me was like, oh, this is so easy, once you understood. And now it's included. Like, I guess it's not as advanced version of it as it used to be, but it's advanced enough to like use it for pretty complex shots. And it's in Resolve. Resolve is, I think, costs $200, but it's basically like it's a, if you buy Resolve, like and I've learned Resolve, I love it. Like, this is it's easily one of my favorite software right now, especially now I'm making my own film, and the Showtime thing is just like, it's really important. Resolve has like the grading tools that they have is basically industry standard. They are used in all films.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The color grading. So even just for that, just like if you like color grading, like Resolve has like the best tools in existence. Basically, they are like industry standard. It's $299. Someone mentioned on the stream.
Yeah. But even speaking of Nuke, there's so much stuff you can do in Nuke, but I personally feel like I know almost nothing about it. But it doesn't matter because I know what I need to know to do what I do.
Nuke is crazy. I like when I was learning, it's crazy as hell. Nuke is like the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, whenever I think I know enough, I try to pick up like a comp from somebody else, and I'm like, first, when I was at ILM, whenever I needed to pick up like a script for somebody else, like the first hour was just about staring at the comp and understanding what the hell was going on. But the good thing is that you just have to deactivate a node to see what it does, so the feedback is really quick. So that's why I love Nuke.
And that the node, working in nodes as your workflow, is. Like that's the way to go. It's just like like as you said, the feedback is so quick. You can just unplug and plug in, or like interject a node just to check what's going on and take it out. It's like if you're working with layers, it just becomes more complex and very linear. Like If you
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the layer system is only like, it's comparing it to video games where you have a linear video game where you can just like only go one way and
Yeah.
one way only, versus like nodes is like a sandbox. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You know?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Nuke isn't that complex. I mean, it's just that, yeah,
Yeah, once you get it, it's like, oh
yeah,
my god, why didn't I, why? And like once you get a taste of that, like everything else is, it will be like, hey, I want nodes there too. You know?
yeah, exactly. It might seem really complicated at first, but it actually starts to make sense really, really quickly.
Mm,
Yeah,
exactly. Okay, and so like I'm guessing at the end of the lesson you're gonna have like a more complex shot,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So I mean, up until now, it was all about 3D. It's only CG so far,
Mm-hmm.
and the lesson 4 is all about doing the 2D matte painting and projecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the first half of the shot is fully CG animated. Then we extend that using 2D matte painting and projections inside of Nuke.
Right.
So the last lesson is first about importing our renders and rebuilding the renders using the different render passes
Mm-hmm.
and maybe tweaking some stuff. Once again, I think I keep everything super simple because I see those techniques used in a much more complex way in house. But once again, I try to keep them all in their simplest form. So rebuilding your renders, then Photoshop,
Mm-hmm.
because at this stage of the process, you have your Photoshop canvas that is ready, at the right size to fit your camera projection inside of Nuke. So it's all about painting your DMP, then importing different layers inside of Nuke and projecting them. Then it's all about compositing, so making everything come together nicely. And this is also usually the part of the process where you have the most back and forth. You will need to go back to Maya. You will probably need to re-render your shot at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of back and forth going on at this stage of the process, but that's totally normal.
Even your
And
dog agrees.
yeah, I think there's a party going on outside, so he's like, he's super nervous right now.
He's nervous about those renders, dude.
Yeah. Oh, that's also something I want to say, but I do say it in the course. If you have limited computer power, that's totally fine, but just do a shot that is shorter. I have 350 frames, so that's quite a lot to render in CG. So if you don't have like amazing GPU power or CPU power, well, just do maybe 60 frames, something like that,
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to start small, just be patient.
exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's just like this last step is basically bringing everything together and extending it,
Exactly. Absolutely.
using everything you've learned and sort of like adding
Yeah.
that extension. A lot of
Yeah.
matte painting would be exactly that, right? Where you just get a shot
Yeah.
and you need to do like a quote unquote set extension. You're gonna get that green screen you're
Yeah.
working with and whatnot. But in this case, you don't have a green screen because you have your
Yeah.
own sort of like
Exactly.
CG elements that already have alpha channel,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Then there's
awesome.
also like, and the very end is also like a very, short word about how you actually deliver a shot, like in a professional environment, like, how you save stuff, in which format, a little word about how, what we call the tech checks. So tech checks is what you do once your shot looks good. Then you just start to bother about with the technical stuff that might not work. It's like when you zoom in like 300%, you see, okay, there's a problem. There's a pixel that is like, moving here. So we got to correct that. So it's all the boring stuff, but it happens a lot in-house.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dude, awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty like throughout a good, overarching explanation on how to approach matte painting shot. What tools you use, like how you use them, and how you approach the shot in the first place. I think that's the most important part, where you get a good basic understanding on what those shots are and how to tackle each aspects of them, instead of just like I remember, again, I hate to be sort of like bringing it back to me, but it's I can only base it on my personal experiences. It's like when I remember watching the first short film that was done completely in CG was the Cathedral by Tomek Baginski, and I was watching that. I was like, wow, that's awesome. I want to make something like that myself. And I've learned, okay, they did it in, I think it was 3ds Max back then, and I picked up 3ds Max, and I'm gonna make my own film, and I've started building a character in NURBS.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I didn't mention this, but the reason why I got into this is because I wanted to make a film.
There you go.
And I'm still doing it. I'm still working on it, right? But my idea was, okay, I'm just going to learn those tools and I'm going to make a film, you know? I wasn't even that much thinking about working in the industry, actually, at first, you know, but it quickly became obvious, okay, it's not going to take me 2 weeks. It's going to take me years.
Yeah. For those who don't understand what NURBS are, it's basically like splines that they're connected and then create a mesh. And I would have like a 1,000,000 polygon hand. That was back in 2004 too, so you can imagine how slow that shit was. Like, oh, how did they make it? Like, it's so impossible. It's just me not knowing anything, you know. And if I knew, like, oh, you actually poly model that stuff, I would learn poly modeling. I would be so ahead of a curve. But I never done that, so I had to go through like those moments where I just had to figure things out myself without the training. And if I had a training like that, like when I was learning matte painting, if I picked up your class, like, oh, okay, I just saved a month of research, you know, like a month of research. Like I don't have to find out by myself how it's done. Like this is the actual like blueprint of how you would approach that shot. Oh, you don't have to render that in 3D. You can just paint it. I didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's what I try to do, you know, because I feel like, I mean, I personally struggled for a long time finding the right tutorials that I will explain really the whole process from start to finish, because a lot of tutorials are sort of incomplete. They will either only teach you the projection thing, or only teach you a bit of modeling, or only teach you a bit of 2D matte painting. But you don't have that much tutorials who just show you how to create a shot from scratch to finish.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, that I think explains enough on what the class is about. I think for anyone who's watching, I think it answers most of the questions too. We are, as we're streaming, this is gonna go on YouTube later on. Obviously, video on demand on Twitch. So if you wanna rewatch it, I think we're gonna post it either later today or tomorrow. It should be up on YouTube as well. So if you missed, or if you just joined the stream, and you missed it, it's like you can rewatch it again later on. So don't worry about that. There was few questions. I think most of the questions were actually related to you, but let me scroll through first.
Sure.
And see if there is any question related specifically to the course. Okay, I found one actually. The course looks like you're showing how to create one main scene. Do you discuss how to approach other scenes?
I do when I in the first lesson, when I break down a few of the shots I've done and when I explain the different types of workflow that exist. But I mean, I really tried for this course to do, like, as I said, a melting pot of all the techniques I know. So technically, if you understand all the processes I use here, you should be able to tackle basically any shot. Because it's a combination of CG animation, a bit of, effects with the water simulation, the camera projection thing, a bit of compositing. Once again, everything in the kind of simple way, but if you understand all those processes, you should be able, with experience, able to tackle any type of shot.
Yeah, and I think eventually, let's say you do exactly what the class is teaching you to do, and then you decide, okay, I want to try something else, and you try to do another shot. You're gonna have a little bit of better understanding where, like, what's going to be your, like, sort of the CG plate and what's going to be a set extension, the 2D projection stuff. A little better than if you would not take the course before. And also, like, I as you said, I think that is just like, experiment. Like, eventually you just need enough practice to know what you can get away with.
Exactly, basically. Especially for the camera projection thing. In my experience, it's all about having enough practice to recognize, okay, I know exactly where I'm going to put my projection cam. I know exactly where it's going to start to stretch, where I will need to put another projection cam. So that just comes with practice and experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of questions that are actually more related to you. I'll read them all because there's
Yeah.
not that many. We kind of crushed it, answered
Yeah.
everything. Okay, let's go one by one. Doom, doom, doom. Question for Steven. What was the one example of turning point in your career that you feel like you owe a lot to credit a lot of credit to? Dude, my reading is so bad.
Well, to me, there's one that just happened that I cannot talk about. It's what I'm gonna do next. That I would say is like the second like really important turning point of my career. And the first one for me was like when, as I said, when I did like the ILM challenge. I think that in many ways changed really a lot of things for me, because from that moment, that's when I started to get in touch with a lot of people who got me where I am now, I guess.
Right, right. That
That's
makes
how I got
sense.
to work at ILM, and by extension meet a lot of different people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like once you make that step and
Yeah,
you finally quote unquote make it, like it
yeah,
snowballs. Like you get, and
exactly.
obviously you have to grab the opportunity. It's not like once it
Yes,
happens, it's just like, oh, I can just, you know,
yeah,
chill
absolutely.
from now. No, that's not how it
Yeah, yeah,
works.
because
But
yeah, it's really, yeah, because I did this challenge. I knew I was not gonna win, but my goal was to just give it all, so they would notice me,
mhm.
and that's exactly what happened. I think they can recognize when you're really motivated and passionate about something. They will see it. And so that helped for the next step, and that step also helped make happen what is happening now, which I still cannot talk about, sadly. But yeah, exactly as you said,
Eventually,
everything snowballs.
eventually.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, we can make a podcast like sometime down the road when you're ready to talk about your
yeah.
second break.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, next question is how did you adjust from working how did you adjust going from how Jesus Christ. I need another coffee. How did you adjust from going from working on personal projects to working in the big studios like
Right.
ILM?
It's really different. Working, I would say, yeah, okay, I would say working at Axis, for example, where I am now, is a bit special. I realized that I might be in a kind of special position compared to a lot of other people in the industry, because at Axis, I pretty much only do the really fun stuff, and I
Mm.
really have my own workflow on the side. I would say that's not what usually happens when you work in a big VFX studio. So for me, working at ILM was really different than working on personal stuff.
Mm.
Um, it's just really different. It's two totally separate things from me. Like the type
Right.
of workflow is different. The mentality is a bit different as well. I enjoy both equally, but it's just different. In my case, I really still need to keep doing personal stuff.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
we all do. Like if you
yeah.
stop doing personal work, you might run yourself into a corner,
Yeah.
especially if you get like really unlucky and get
Hmm.
on a streak of projects that get canceled or you cannot show
Yes.
the work from. You end up like
Absolutely.
with a couple of years of your career missing
Yeah.
basically because like I just cannot show anything, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So that's why I still keep doing personal stuff as much as I can. And also because I just love it. That's just my escape.
Yeah.
It's what I do, to have fun. It's just do personal work. So that's why I will not stop doing it. Um, but I'm really lucky that at Axis, it feels very much like doing personal work, actually. So
That's
I
awesome.
realized that I might be very lucky about that. That might not happen in many places, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
There are certain spots in the industry where it's like you can like really fulfill
Yeah.
that niche that you're after, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
Hmm.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another question was you mentioned passing on jobs that start
Yeah.
before getting better ones to accept. How
Yeah.
did you make decision when to pass and when to accept? I find it can be really scary to pass on
I
offers
know. It
when your
was,
when your
and
bank account is on a
yeah.
steady decline.
Obviously you got to be able to afford it. If you're broke, I mean, please work.
Yeah.
But if you have time on your hands, I mean, just focus that time on working on your skills and on your personal work. And if you can afford, just take the job that you really want to do. I mean, that is really my own personal opinion. I realize that it might not be valid for everybody. It's just for me, it felt like the right thing to do, to be honest.
Right.
But I wasn't sure about it. It's funny. Just before going to ILM, I was about to accept finally a job that, looking back, I absolutely did not want to do. Because at that point, I was like, okay, maybe this is not working out like it should. Maybe I actually should start more from the bottom. And it's just like 1 month later, I had the job at ILM. I was like, holy crap! I'm really, I'm really glad I didn't accept the other job.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like I was absolutely sure it was going to work out. It was a bit scary at times, for sure. But in my case, I could afford it for the most time, and also, once again, I felt really driven. I felt pretty confident despite everything.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a personal thing. I mean, I wouldn't say do what I do. I mean, just do whatever feels right for you, probably.
It's so personal, honestly. Like the decision making on that point it's very personal, and like any advice you hear, you have to take with grain of salt and then really apply it to your own life.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
every one of us is different. I've mentioned that in the beginning that just some people are more conscientious and better at decision making.
Yeah.
And that's an actual genetic trait you're gonna have. Like some people are just genetically built to make better decisions.
Yeah.
Like recognize opportunities better than others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that's something.
To me, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. To me, it just felt right because I knew, I had been in touch with ILM for a little while, so I sort of knew it was just a matter of timing to be there at the right timing. Also knew what kind of projects were coming at ILM at that point, so I knew I might be able to get on one of those. So it just, everything felt like I should have made this decision, and it's what I did. So it paid off, but you gotta feel it. It's really personal, as you said.
I think not accepting working for free is like a good starting point.
Yes.
Not
please,
working,
yes.
not work. Like if you want to accept work, but you could get more money at McDonald's, that's another good like metric to not do it. Like creative work, it's not. Let's put it this way: not everyone can be creative. That's just a fact. Like you have to be born that way. There's because like
so, yeah.
I know a lot of people that enjoy art and have creative ideas, but they don't have that drive. Like they're just like they don't understand that in the middle of conversation or dinner or spending time with family, you're completely zoned out because you're thinking about something you want to do, and they're like, why are you thinking about it? It's like, you don't understand. If I don't think about it, I'm dying inside. Like I have to do it or I'm gonna die inside.
Yes, and it usually starts at a very early age. I mean, as far as I can remember, I've always been this way. It's something I will always do, even if I'm not getting paid for it. Even if I had like $1 billion, I would still keep doing this. It's just something I have to do.
Yeah. But my point is, like, not everyone can do that. Like everyone can learn to do like the technical stuff, of course. But like the kind of creative work that kind of extends above that, like that has some value, and you have to respect yourself. Like you cannot work for a minimum wage to do that.
You cannot,
unless you're like starving, and like if I don't do it, like I'm just gonna end up on the street. That's a different story, right?
Exactly.
But at that point, you might as well just pick up a regular job and not stress about dealing with asshole clients,
Yeah, and that's why I always say to people, I mean, don't get so crazy about getting that first gig, I mean, focus on just getting better. I don't see really the point in getting that job you really don't care about just for the sake of getting a job in the industry, In my case, I knew that I wanted to start as close from the top as I possibly could. And as I said, I've never really applied anywhere. And I personally think it's the best thing to do if you can just get better at your stuff to the point where the best jobs that you actually want to do come to you.
Yeah.
That's the way I approach it. And I think it's the best way, at least for me. I mean, it depends on you once again.
Yeah, you have to obviously be intelligent about your choices. Like you
Yeah.
cannot wait and drain your bank account and become broke. Like
Yes.
that's
Of
just
course.
stupid, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you calculate your time and you know you can afford to try and be comfortable with it, you know?
Yeah.
Because obviously like if you make a lot of savings and then you burn through them and then go nowhere, that
Mm-hmm.
means like you're not making a wise decision, right?
Yeah.
But if you can comfortably and do something that you won't be resentful about later on, and yet you push and put like a lot of effort towards it, and it
Mm-hmm.
works out, that's going to be like the greatest feeling for sure.
Yeah.
um yeah, I would say this is so true that you just said, you know, like once you get to a point where you're not looking for work but the work
Mm-hmm.
is looking for you, that's a
Yeah.
completely different experience being in the
Yeah.
industry. Like it's
Absolutely.
just night and day, because I've
Yes.
been through both. Like my first work that I've done, well actually my first work, I had a period of time where I had to look for work in the very very early beginning, you know, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like a student. I didn't have any costs of living. Like I lived with my parents, you know, with my mom, and um you know, I was broke anyway, so I didn't care. So I had like absolutely nothing to lose.
Yeah.
um but so that's when I was like searching for work, but if it didn't happen, then I was like, obviously I was bummed, but I
Yeah.
was already like working as a janitor, so I kind of had a, you know, kind of like a lowest point already happening for
Yeah.
me, so like it cannot get worse than that, you know, for me
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least. So
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
but once I got to a point where the work was coming to me and I was getting those offers, like that's so different,
I know. Yeah.
because like a your rate is completely different then, because
Yeah.
you have offers to choose from, so you can choose a better offer for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you can choose the project that you're gonna be more happy with already as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Okay, let's see what else. There was one more question, I think. um do you really need to be on Maya for matte painting professionally in freelance as well?
Um, as a freelancer, I think you can do whatever you want, as far as I know. But even in-house, Maya is the standard tool. But I think that most good companies, if they can see that you're really, really good at what you do, they won't care that much about what software you use. It's just better, I think, if you want to work in-house, if you start right away by learning Maya, because that's likely
Yeah.
what you will have to learn. That's all I'm saying.
Isn't
But if you're really good
Cinema
at
4D
something
is
else,
great as well, right? It's not.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, Steve Messing is using Cinema 4D like
yeah, for
pretty
sure.
much exclusively.
Yeah, I think Cinema 4D was very much used for matte painting. Once again, more like in the Dylan Cole days, maybe
Yeah,
10 years ago. Nowadays, it's more for concept artists. But if you're like a freelancer at home, I think you can be free to use whatever you want. To be honest.
yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
know, the main reason why Maya became like the household for VFX Studio is
Mhm.
because it's such a script friendly environment,
Yep.
and a lot of studios have they almost it's almost like if you go to work at MPC versus ILM and both use Maya, but those are
Yep.
like completely two different versions of
Absolutely.
Maya.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually a bit difficult for me at first because I thought I knew Maya. Then I was there like, what the hell is this? This
Yeah,
is
like
not
what is
Maya.
this? Like that's not Maya, you know? Like it looks like
Yeah.
Maya, but it behaves completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
own script, like rigging, like yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like so many different things that are
Yeah.
just handcrafted by the studio for their
Absolutely.
personal like workflow. But that's
Yeah.
something, you know, once you join a studio, they give you enough time to sort of like
Yeah, I
adjust.
think so.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
give you like they expect you to learn that, obviously, like you're not gonna take months to learn something.
Yeah.
They expect you're gonna pick up pretty quickly.
Of course. Yeah.
But they do, yeah, they give you time.
Yeah. I mean, most companies always start with a few days, if not weeks, of pure training anyway, just to learn the in-house tools.
Yeah,
And very often when you start in a company, they will not give you like the major shots. I mean, it's a teamwork anyway. So
yeah,
you're
exactly.
always opening the scene from somebody else and stuff like that. So
uh and one KKKKK asked if you get a software. Yeah, like once you get it to a studio, you're gonna have your desk. They're
yeah.
gonna have a machine for you. it's gonna be like pre-installed everything. Like
Yeah.
I think that's how it works in the VFX studios. Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
funny because, like in film, when you work in the art department, you bring your own computer and your own
Yes.
stuff, which is
I
like
know,
the
yeah.
craziest. I was like, what?
Yeah,
That makes
absolutely.
no sense.
Yeah, it's true. But no, in VFX houses, you got to work with the studio pipeline, so everything is set up for you.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
not gonna work. Like you're not gonna bring your computer and your software, and they are
Yeah.
not gonna spend like weeks to make sure that it's safe in
Yeah.
terms of like it's nothing's gonna leak, or like
Yeah.
the viruses or like whatever, and if like the
Yeah.
right tools are installed. Like that's just like such a huge headache
Yeah,
for
and you're
IT
also likely
deal
to
with.
have to be working on Linux if you work in one of the major VFX houses.
Yeah.
So you'll probably not be working on Windows, which can be a bit annoying at first, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we
Yeah,
answered it all. There
cool.
was one question. There's one more question. Let's get that one and then wrap it up. And
Cool.
that's just like a more overarching question. How do you attack creative blocks?
Huh, that's a good question. I think I haven't had like a real block in quite a long time now. And I think that's just because I always want to do what I want to do. If it's just a matter of being inspired. So if you have a block, just consume content, just read a book. Also, one thing that really is helping me a lot now is I sort of took health back into my own hands. So now I go to the gym like on a regular basis. The fact of working in house actually helped me a little bit, having a better rhythm. So sleeping enough, taking care of myself, going to the gym, just that, will solve actually a lot of problems in your life,
Yeah,
including probably some creative block you might have.
anxiety, like everything.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
found myself
Yeah.
like periodically I find myself to be way overworked, and
Yeah.
usually what that means also uh it just ends up me not having time to go to the gym, not
Yes.
having enough
Hmm.
time for sleeping. Like
Yep.
the the effect that it has on health, it like just comparing, because I can compare like the two states in which you're in, like one
Yeah.
where you're like overworked, not
Hmm.
sleeping, not
Yeah.
working out or having any training whatsoever, versus like if you're sleeping, going regularly either for a walk, gym,
Yeah.
run, whatever that would be, and then actually like and having the same workload, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a night and day. It's just like it
Yeah.
doesn't even compare.
For sure. Yeah. But whenever I feel like I'm not inspired anymore, I usually try to reconnect to whatever inspired me in the first place. So I go back, to the films I loved when I was a kid. I watched a documentary about that. I just try to remember what excited me in the first place.
Yeah. I think the
That's it.
only time, and that might be controversial, that's something I'm kind of learning, I
Yeah.
guess, over time, is that sometimes, sometimes, like forced inspiration is not really that great unless
Oh
you
yeah.
are working on a professional project, like for a client
Yes.
where you just need to deliver. That's
Yep.
one thing. Like that's where you kind of like, yeah, I think the best way to approach professional projects is if you have a creative block and you're in that like rot of like lack of inspiration to do something, just realize like, you know what, it's work.
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
it has to be work. Like like it's not always gonna be fun. Like it has to be
Yes.
work, and you have to get the work done, whether you like it or
Absolutely.
not. Just power through it. Just
Yep.
force yourself, like once you get into, and sometimes like forcing yourself will help you to kind of go back to that flow state
Yep.
of creation. Like once you see that you kind of broke like the first barrier that was kind of blocking you, that kind of
Yep.
gives you that encouragement to kind of go push even more, and eventually
Yep.
like you break all of the blocks and you're like through, and you feel
Hmm.
re-energized, like, oh yeah, finally I
Yes.
tackled this.
Yeah.
um
That's why personal work is very different from me than client work. I personally have never have blocks when it comes to client work, and
mhm.
just because they already provide you with like IDs, like whether
Yeah,
it's like a script or even like a sketch, something like that. That usually for me is already enough to get inspired about a ton of things. So I never have like creative blocks when I do any kind of professional work.
right.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You'll run into one. I promise you.
Sure. I'm sure I will. I do have sometimes burnouts, but those are not really creative blocks, I think.
Yeah.
It's just me like getting, overworked, not enough time to do everything. But it's not exactly the same as not being inspired, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're burned out, then just stop. Like do
Yeah.
something else. Play a video game,
Yeah.
whatever. Like you just need
Yeah.
to relax. You cannot do you don't want to be in the point where you're burning out and you're still pushing, because that's just not healthy. You're not gonna get anywhere.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we answered it all. We actually went overtime, which is fine.
Cool.
Well deserved, because we canceled the first stream, so at least we're doing it a little longer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's the course is already out. It's been out for I think more than a week.
Yeah.
You can buy it online on learnsquared.com. It's still on the discounted price, so grab it till you can. I don't remember when exactly that sales end, but it's very soon. I think it's very, very soon. So definitely grab it on the lower price if you're interested in the course. It's a good one. I like the premise of it. Obviously, everything we release on Learn Squared is kind of that. Like it kind of goes through that. Not only I'm trying to make sure that the artists and designers we have on the platform are the world-class people, but also everything we have on the platform is about something that I would personally want to learn, even if I don't have time for, but at least like I treat it almost, it's like my personal learning library that I never had.
That's cool.
But I know it helps. I know it helps people. We actually reached out recently to a lot of you guys. I'm pretty sure some of you guys who are listening or watching it have gotten those emails from us, asking about your personal experiences. And some of the feedback we're getting is like, wow, okay. It's like we were not aware. Aware that it's helping a lot of you guys to like get better and get work in the industry. Some of the stories are incredible. Like, what the hell? And obviously there's a bunch of feedback like what could we do better too, like how can we improve. So we listen to that too. And if you have any feedback, there's always this little help icon right here. You can click it and then just write anything. There's like instant answers to most asked questions, all that stuff we have here. But also like you can ask your own question, and we're gonna read that, and we read all of those. Like we make sure that we want to answer them all and make sure that the platform is growing and getting better over time. I mean, hell, some of you guys who are with Learn Squared since its inception, like you probably remember how shitty the website was back then,
I was actually also, I think I followed Jama's course when it came out. I was one of the first, I think, to take his class.
So you've seen the website. We're constantly working on the website too, improving, making new features and all that stuff. It's all built from scratch too, like we kind of invested shit ton of money to make sure that it's like a good experience. But anyways, good. Super happy for the class. It's released. It's on, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Thanks for everyone who decided to join the stream. I wish I had time, and I know it's an ongoing question. I get emails about it sometimes, not as often anymore. But some of you guys are asking, hey, are you gonna be back to streaming and whatnot? And it's like my answer is like, as much as I would like to stream, I just have to be realistic about my life. Currently, it's just like having full-time job, running the company Learn Squared with my partner Andrew, having a kid, having time for personal projects that I do as well. Like as you mentioned, like personal projects, like it cannot be all work all the time. Like I just have to give up on something, and especially when I get a little like older over time. Like I wish I had the energy that I had 10 years ago. That would be perfect. But I don't anymore, and I just run out of time. And sometimes I just want to just like not do anything too,
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, it's like whenever I feel like I have enough time to actually put into, that's when I'll like do a stream. It's same to my podcast. Like I do a podcast in bursts right now as well, like the Art Cafe, where whenever I know I'm gonna have a period of time where I'm not overworked and I can actually spend enough quality time with my guests and do something good for the community, instead of just sort of like half-assing it and sort of like just doing it because, oh, like the algorithm says that you have to do it every week, then more people watch it. Like it's just not jive with me that much, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a stream for the sake of doing a stream. I want to do a stream when I know I can deliver something valuable for you guys. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
All right, I hope that makes sense. Thanks, guys, for coming. And yeah, this will be on YouTube later on, probably by tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And thanks a lot for everyone who's subscribing and resubscribing. I really appreciate you guys for doing that, obviously. And yeah, anyways, let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys, and I will see you next time. We have some bunch of classes in works, but let's focus on this one. This one is great. So
Cool.
Thanks, Steve, for being here.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks to you, and thanks to you guys.
All right, sounds good. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.